Hi, everyone, and welcome to the PMs in the Age of AI session tonight. We are so excited to be here with you and to be kicking off Toronto Tech Week with you all. Some of you have already come from other events, so we want to hear all about those too, but we're excited to be here with you today. From chatting with a lot of you earlier just while we were grabbing snacks, it sounds like we have a really great mix of people here. We have some aspiring PMs, we have some seasoned operators, and we have folks just kind of curious about the AI space and kind of this massive shift in the industry. So super excited to have you all here and for this chat. Before we dive into our incredible panel and content for tonight, we do have some housekeeping items to share. So first off, a huge thank you to Sego Mini for hosting us in our beautiful office. I am a bit biased because I work here, but I love my office and I love all the people who work here. So please be very gracious and go to anyone with the green lanyards for any questions you may have. If you need any support with anything, all the green lanyards, there are a lot of us, are happy to help out. Washrooms, if you go just to the second hallway back there, there is a sign. You will see them. There's a men's and women's back there. And then there's also an individual washroom just through the reception on the right. In the unlikely event of an emergency, we do have two staircases, one at the front of the building, one at the back. But again, those green lanyard volunteers will direct us if needed, which hopefully we won't need it. The food and drinks will stay here throughout the evening. Feel free to quietly grab some more. If you wanted to grab now before we actually get started, please do. But throughout, you're welcome to always grab. And then once the panel wraps up, we will, as you all know, we'll have a networking happy hour session. And so for that, we'll head up to the rooftop because it's such a beautiful day today. And when we get closer to that, I'll share some logistics on how to get there, what to do, all of that fun stuff. Okay, yeah, please come. There's a seat right here. Okay, so let's get into why we are actually here. For those I haven't met yet, my name is Eliza Ladani. I, as I mentioned, am a PM here at Sego. And prior to my life as a product manager, I was software engineer turned data strategy consultant, turned chocolatier, turned business founder. So I definitely know firsthand what it's like to navigate, interesting career pivots to get into the product management space, like a lot of you here as well. And I have the absolute privilege of welcoming our phenomenal builders and speakers who are joining us on stage today to share some real tactical insights. So can I ask the three lovely folks at the back to come up, take your seats while I introduce you and potentially embarrass you. Okay, so I'm going to get started. I'm going to talk over here while they take their seats. So first up, we have Rahim Musa. Rahim is currently the co-founder of Easy Appointment Booking, which helps Shopify brands offer services and consultations. The tool lives in over 25,000 stores. So if you've ever booked an appointment or meeting through a Shopify-based store, you have almost certainly used Rahim's tool. Before taking the founder route, he was a senior PM at AWS, where he led massive $1.5 billion collection system and was the very first PM ever at Clearco, where he launched new international products and scaled the product team from 1 to 7 people while driving some absolutely incredible revenue growth. Welcome, Rahim. Thanks for being here. Next up, we have Abid Ladani. Abid is an absolute powerhouse when it comes to building 0 to 1 products. He is currently the co-founder of Insightful AI, an agentic AI tool that conducts user research interviews at scale. He actually built Insightful because he experienced that exact pain point that we all face as PMs, needing deep customer context, but not having the weeks or months that it traditionally takes to do qualitative research. So before founding his own company, he was the product lead for cash and stablecoin products at Coinbase. And prior to that, he built Wealthsimple Banking from the ground up, essentially, growing its assets under management from $20 million to over $8 billion today as Canada's fastest growing banking product, which many of us probably use. Is it incorrect?
No, that's correct.
Exactly. Thank you. I do my research. I'm a good PM. Okay. And before I introduce our final host, I just want to say a massive thank you to Rahim and Abid for being here. We are so incredibly lucky to have builders like yourselves joining us, sharing your time and your battle-tested learnings with us tonight. Thank you. Yeah. And finally, I am thrilled to introduce my wonderful co-host for the evening, Iris Guo. Iris is an absolute force in the Toronto tech community, as many of you probably know and have seen and met Iris before. She has been working at the intersection of data and AI as a PM for the last many years, with incredible experience as an ML PM at Zynga, working at Scale AI and Arteria AI, and most recently, she has been doing some fantastic work in career coaching and community building to help others break into the AI and PM space. But most importantly for tonight, she is the founder and host of the Iris Lens podcast. Tonight is actually, and especially this panel, is actually being recorded as a live episode for the podcast. So with that, I'm going to pass the mic over to Iris to kick off our panel. Enjoy.
Thank you. Thank you, Elisa. That was such a nice introduction. I love it when you hype all of us up, and that sounds very nice. So thank you all of you for being here, and this is our 4th episode for Iris Lens. We are a podcast about AI upskilling, and let's dive right in. So first, I want to talk about the role of PRD, because that has been seen as the bread and butter for PMs for a very long time. And now, given that AI can easily spit out a PRD, how do you think the role of PRD is evolving? Is it still important to have PRDs?
Yeah, testing. You guys hear me? This is the mic. Okay, great. Cool. Good to be here. Great question. I just want to preface before we start to say that nobody really has all the answers right now. We're all trying to figure this out. So as much as we come up here and get introduced in an over-flattering way, we actually don't really know definitively what the right answer is. But based on our experiences, what I can say at Coinbase and Wealthsimple, both of which were very AI-pilled companies. They adopted a lot of the AI coding tools like Claude Code pretty early. I think first and foremost, PRDs are not dead. Prototyping is definitely a bigger deal, and I'm sure all of you have heard that. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. But I think the question is when do you prototype versus when do you use a PRD? And often, I think where the line is drawn is the complexity of the initiative. And usually that complexity is measured by how much do you need alignment from a bunch of different people, including leadership, right? And I would say that prototyping has been great for really fast, iterative, UI, front-end experiences. How do you improve the deposit flow, onboarding, things like that. But for more complicated initiatives where you have underlying assumptions, prototypes don't do a good job at being explicit about those underlying assumptions, right? So I think prototypes are actually, PRDs are actually more important than ever to lay out those assumptions and make sure you're having the explicit buy-in and debate with leadership on those assumptions. But often accompanying a PRD with a good prototype, just to showcase some ideas, I think is also very useful. So PRD is not dead. The bar for a PRD is a little bit higher. You don't need a PRD for everything. Often you could just ship a PR and not have it sitting as a feature request for a long time, but PRDs are still super important.
Yeah, I would agree that PRDs are not dead. Similar reason, but I'll give some context. So at Amazon, I'm sure most have heard, but just a refresher is that they tend to use what's called a PRFAQ. It's like a one-pager that just does as if it was the first headline or tweet, and then your 6-page BRD, which is very detailed, thorough review. And similar to what Abid mentioned is that the more complex it is, the more assumptions that have to be challenged or thought through clearly, you still need that PRD. And the way it was crafted at Amazon is that writing is thinking. So that thinking is still very relevant and important because as much as building has shrunk in terms of its timelines, knowing what to build is super, super important. So maybe that PRD is smaller. Maybe it is accompanied with an actual prototype. I completely agree that you should add a prototype wherever possible. Sometimes in the past, I remember before all these current AI tools, if I wanted to do a prototype, sometimes it would be I got to open up my crappy design tool and stitch it all together. But now you have Claude Design, now you have Figma, now you have all these tools where you're a prompt away and iterate on that prompt. Use that thinking and use that judgment to accompany it effectively. So I agree, PRDs are not dead, but I think that the sort of takeaway is that I still think writing is thinking. So if you think it's complex, you think there's a lot to challenge there, continue to do it because it will actually help.
Yeah, completely agree. Just to add on, I think then if PRDs aren't dead, then the inevitable question is like, do you use AI to draft a PRD? Do you start from scratch? Like, how do you do the PRD? And I have done both, right? I've used AI to draft an initial version, but I have not used it to draft an initial version of like a fairly complex problem. And I think the important thing related to what Raheem is saying is writing is thinking, right? And what writing it from scratch does is forces you to like think about all of the edge cases, all of like the risks, the user experience issues, and more to differentiate yourself as a PM, you're not just thinking about the product, you're also thinking about the go-to-market strategy, you're thinking about compliance, you're thinking about a bunch of different sort of surfaces that touch the customer. So writing that out fully and then using AI as a sparring partner is super helpful. There's a tool, it's a really fun tool, it's called superme.ai. Basically, it's like a bunch of like AI PM thought leaders like Lenny and some people in fintech, and you can choose the persona who you want to respond to. You could like put your PRD in there, scrub it of any like confidential information, and have it like critique you as a product executive, right? Because often what really gets you the promotion is how you, because we're all here to get promoted if you're working at a company, right? But what gets you the promotion is like how you respond to executive feedback, how you respond to like the hard questions. So simulating that is like a great exercise.
Yeah, for sure. No, I totally agree. I think nowadays I also try to write my own, like I do my own PRD first draft and then use AI to give me feedback. And another thing I found really useful is that I basically import all the, like you mentioned, the thought leaders like Lenny's of the world, the market Cajuns, like put in their resources because now you can use them as a coach for giving you feedback. It's like, oh, let me train a specific agent, just think about how Lenny would say, and then give me feedback on my PRD. So then now you have access to the world-class coaches about product thinking strategy. So, but I love what you guys have mentioned as well. And then now going deeper into this topic, you mentioned since you do use AI to critique your PRD, and then sometimes people use AI to write Slack updates, emails, and there's a massive risk of outsourcing your product judgment and thinking there. But how do you make sure that in this process, you're not losing your authentic voice as who you are and also the judgment for product?
Yeah. So when it comes to like working with, let's say, external customers, partners, and so on, I personally don't use AI for like sending emails. Personally, I've used it for drafting emails, especially if there's a meeting recap. You know, like there you can use AI for that. But the reason why I don't do a full send is because ultimately the way you communicate with customers and partners, that is your influence too. So I think, do I use AI for it? I do, but there's always me in the loop. I'm the human in the loop for that. Now, internally, and actually, just so I understand, raise of hands, who is currently a PM? Currently? Aspiring PM? Okay, that's a good mix. Okay, so, oh, and one more question. Large company, like pretty large, multiple teams? Small company, startup? Okay, good. Okay, so I'll answer this in two different ways. So internally, at a large company, I couldn't do that at Amazon, where I'm using an AI to like respond, but I'm talking about internal communications. But at a smaller company, which is my own now, I do use it. So think of it like this, and I draw this parallel. Sometimes as a PM, you get asks or walk-ups. Hey, when is this feature getting released? What's the content on it? Who's the main person behind it? And eventually you get tired, and you're like, here's the wiki, or here's the roadmap. In a similar parallel, you could create an AI or a conversation that is like, here's the answer, and that is your Slack bot, or that is your bot responding to it. that is something that I think is okay internally, as long as you put that disclaimer that like, hey, I'm out of office or a different time zone, or like, hey, why don't you start here first? But it depends on the culture and depends on what's actually open to it. But to answer your question succinctly, customers, I would not. Don't your trust and influence is your currency, so don't degrade that. But internally, to save you time, I think you could, drawing on that wiki roadmap parallel. Over to you.
That was not concise.
Sorry.
No, but I agree with everything you said. I think the way I think about this, like my mental model is like, what is the stakes of the communication, right? So if you're like sending out, it's been a while since I worked at a company, but when you're sending out like let's say a bi-weekly business review of like metrics, here's like what's up, here's what's down, et cetera, that you can like automate the crap out of, and as long as the data is correct and you're having a data scientist review it, or you can review it. But yeah, that you can like automate. Me sparring with an exec on a particular decision on Slack in a long thread, I'm not going to outsource that, right? I might like, it might be like a hard to explain decision that I might like throw my response into AI just to like make sure that it's clearer, and that's my use case. So that's a higher stakes thing. I wouldn't necessarily outsource it, but I would have some assistance. But like low stakes reporting, yeah, go to town with it. Now that I'm doing my own thing, I agree on the sales side when you're like first reaching out to customers. I tried like the mass sends, and I always get higher conversion rate when I like personalize the message, right? But for my follow-ups, it's all AI. I use a tool called Every. I think there's a few Shopify founders who built it, and literally just press send on the follow-up, and I don't personalize it at all. So that's kind of how, I don't know if that's good or not, but that's how I operate.
Yeah, that makes sense. You basically have to prioritize the use cases where you require full human attention versus the ones where it is easier to automate it and then you can do it. Yeah, that makes sense. I was also thinking about building a content system for our podcast where we can have the transcript from each call and then have those being generated for like video contents for short form, or having Instagram, LinkedIn posts generated, and then I can iterate on top of that. So that's something I'm tinkling with, so we'll see how that goes. Next, I have a question about the return of the IC. Since now execution has been cheaper than ever and anyone can execute any task, how does a PM actually stand out? And then we have like more ICs than ever, like middle managements are getting rid of. And what are some of the key human skills that are non-negotiable as an IC? And how do you hone those skills?
Yeah, so I think this is a really important question. Coinbase, as an example, after I left, had just a recent big layoff. And you're also seeing a bunch of layoffs in the news. And people are restructuring around smaller teams, right? Where you have fewer layers. And frankly, just a bit of a hot take, I don't think this is driven by AI. I think this is something that they wanted to do for a long time. They just needed an excuse to do it. And they should have done it because operating with smaller teams always generally leads to better outcomes. We saw this at Wealthsimple. You see it at other places like Shopify. So I think the return of the IC was always going to come, right? There was just perverse incentives that bloated teams because you wanted to get more scope and they get promoted. But I think AI has like taken the mask off and been like, okay, there's a bunch of admin work that was kind of bullshit. You don't need that. You don't need big teams. You don't need big teams anymore, and you could have smaller teams. So just to go back to your question, I think the skills that matter are the skills that have like, there's a few skills that have always mattered, right? So being close in proximity with your customer, right? That's a cliche, but it's just like so true. And especially when the bottleneck is not building anymore, it's figuring out what to build. Having that regular feedback loop with your customers is critical. It's kind of what my product does, just plugging it. And then the second sort of set of skills are, I think the line is blurring between designers and PMs. I think great business-oriented designers are gonna flourish I think design-oriented PMs can flourish in this environment. But I think I think this is another cliche, but like taste or judgment, and that comes from reps. And by reps, that means like, you're shipping a lot or you are using a lot of products that, have a high bar. I think that's also, I think, really important, those reps. I think the third piece is like, and this is not going away, unfortunately, it's the most annoying part about being a PM, is like the politics. It's like the alignment of leadership. It's actually one of the hardest things. There's like a podcast with head of growth at Anthropic, and he's like, that like alignment of stakeholders is still a really critical task, right? So that is also an important thing. Yeah, I think I'll pause there.
Nailed it. Yeah, I would say, yeah, like if I were to go back to what you said about judgment, right? Like judgment, product taste, like these are all critical. And like, I think, let's use the example of like, let's say you're using AI to help build different and help you rank different feature ideas for your actual roadmap, let's say. There's going to be context that you uniquely know, your market positioning, where the company is at. Do you have a pretty complex product to interface with? Do you have a design team? Can you lean into design to actually make that happen? Like, do you think it's trivial enough on the design side? Like, there's so many different areas for you to navigate with, and I think the IC is typically the one doing that, right? So I think if you're in the trenches, you're making those trade-offs, you're in a good position to make sure you're setting the quality and pace of that decision making. That quality and pace is still there. I think the pace is faster now, right? I mean, I'm actually curious, like, so some of the work, like some of it is, you're right, BS work, and then a lot of it, so example, roadmap creation. When I started as a junior, it was like, okay, I'm building features, specs, backlog, roadmap, quarterly roadmap, yearly roadmap. Does anyone create, generally curious, does anyone create a yearly roadmap? Okay, it's good. I mean, it's good to know, because I think it used to be more when I was younger, when I had hair, and I lost hair because of it, because there's so much that you have to navigate through. It's hard. Is it hard? A 12-month roadmap?
Yes, but at the same time, I think if you know going into it, it's up for revision three times a year.
Right.
Provided, I mean, for me, I very strongly tie my roadmap to the company's goals.
Right.
And then I make sure that every person in the room of the leadership team and everybody down knows this is the roadmap we're sticking to.
Right.
And if we deviate from it, it needs to be a consensus, because if something gets added, something's falling off.
Yeah, totally.
That for me, I updated it last week.
Makes sense, and that goes back to Abid's point, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna need to still navigate that influence and get consensus with key stakeholders, but as long as you're in the trenches, like you're still gonna have to navigate where that product goes. And going back to quality and pace, that pace is faster, and so you're gonna have to find a way to make sure you're still in the trenches and rolling through it.
The other thing I just want to emphasize is like now the bar for what a good PM is raised. Again, I don't think it's actually raised. I just think the mask has been taken off, and there's a bunch of PMs doing like backlog grooming and things that don't matter. And now that stuff truly doesn't matter, right? But the bar, you can say, has been raised. But the ceiling for what great could be is like much higher, because you could build so much more. So it's actually a really exciting time. I think it's more exciting than it is scary. And I think the two other things I'll say is like, if you're a business-oriented PM and you have some design sensibility, get really good at the GTM side, at like the marketing, the sales side. I think, product is like a tech role, but I actually think more than that, it's like you're a business lead, and you have to drive P&L outcomes. So mask is taken off. That was always important. It just, people were so in the weeds of execution. That shit doesn't matter anymore. You have to drive outcomes, right? And then the second thing is, now that building things, the cost of building things is going down, subject matter expertise, like deep subject matter expertise matters a lot, right? So if you are in fintech or in healthcare and there's a deep tacit like workflow that you're familiar with that is super valuable, being able to build around that super quickly, is much easier because you're familiar with it. So like if you want to break into PM, it really helps to have that subject matter expertise because you're closer to the customer, closer to their problem, you know more about them.
Yeah, totally. Now that it's so easy to build, the distribution funnel is more important than ever because how you get that product to the hand of customer, how do you get people to start using it? How do you build product that's actually valuable that people want becomes the key for a successful product. So then given the easier execution and a lot of AI are being used in the execution layer, but how do you use AI in terms of strategy and user discovery? And are there any workflows that you use, since we're at Iris Lens and we're all about AI upscaling workflows? Any workflows that you feel like is a cheat code right now that helps you out in strategy or user discovery? And I know you have a whole startup around this topic, so can't wait to hear.
Yeah, I mean, before I plug it, this is a really challenging thing to outsource to AI, right? So I would just being realistic. It's difficult to outsource all of this to AI. Just in terms of like core workflows, not strategy related, but I'll get to the strategy point in a second. Like I think a very basic workflow that I've incorporated is like I have a daily briefing now. So I set up a Zapier, I'll be specific, set up like a Zapier bot every morning at 7 a.m. It reads through my emails, my Gmail, my G Calendar, and a few other things, and gives me a daily digest of the things I need to focus on, the things that are up ahead. I have a weekly digest and a daily digest, and I find that super, super helpful. But in terms of like the strategy side, my product, Insightful.ai, is essentially an agentic user researcher. What we found at large companies, including Coinbase and DoorDash and others, is that like often as companies get bigger, the further they get from their customer because they have to like wrangle all these like internal leaders, and you'd be surprised how many like well-known tech companies do not, like PMs, engineers, they don't talk to customers at all, right? So because they're so caught up in the weeds of things. So what Insightful does is like it's your personal user researcher. So you can start off with an objective with it. It'll jam. It'll create sort of a study with you. It could be like a prototype test that you've like vibe coded, or a Figma prototype. It has an integration with Figma, and then it will like go out and it'll either recruit an audience for you from our panel of 6 million people, or you could just recruit your own audience or your own customer list, and it'll run conversations with them. And the agentic researcher kind of digs deeper. It asks clarifying questions. It's been trained to go off script and really chase things that are interesting, and then synthesizes all of the hundreds of interviews it can do within 24 hours and create like a full deck and report that you could present to leadership right after. So that's something that I built that I have other teams at other companies using. And I think how it is injected in workflows is at the beginning of every week, product design and engineering teams, they think about a question, they start a study at the beginning of the week, mid of the week, they see where it's at, and they use some of those findings for a product review, and that's kind of how it works.
Sweet. Yeah, for discovery, I still do it some of the old school way, but I've actually tried this product. It's dope. I have a smaller company, of course, so like when I hop on calls, so it's interesting. I mean, during a PM's cycle, like you're going to do discovery calls, because I have founded my company now. These are sales calls, but they're also discovery calls. So it's really interesting to try and like, and they're not that different when it comes to sales. Like you want to understand where they're at and be able to extract what you've learned from that to put it in something actionable, right? I use Granola. You guys heard of Granola? Okay, so super useful. The workflow I'll describe is I'm in a meeting with a customer or a potential customer. I will have Granola, doing the transcript, and I use Claude for my main terminal, and I have a Granola MCP, and based on that, Granola will pull the transcript, and it will, I have a workflow created where it drafts, not sends, drafts the recap in my email. So it's an email recap to convey the next steps, and also connects to Linear. So anyone use Linear, or it's like a Jira or Trello? Yeah. So Linear is great for this like AI native type of workflow. It creates Linear tickets for me if there's like a quick feature or bug that I have to log. So what used to be, a lot of time, okay, let me dig through, recap, is this a bug or not, or whatever. I'm now reviewing, and it's much faster. I would say that's my main discovery workflow. One more I'll plug because I'm really excited about it. Anyone used like intercom or chat solutions, like if there's like a customer facing aspect? So it's kind of like live chat. We have a support team to help manage our customers, and we actually go through the conversations, and I have a job that runs in Claude to grade and assess the conversations. And what it does is it pulls out, it does it daily to actually grade it. It is really for sentiment analysis. I share it back with the team directly, be like, hey, I'm using AI for this. These are the things I'm using it for, so that they can learn, oh, okay, I could have done that better, and so on. So there's internal dog fooding or feeding there. The second being, those can also create Linear tickets too. So if I do a daily analysis, but I can do it per week or month, grab Linear tickets as well. Those are two workflows. So it's really Claude at the center, and then using Granola, Intercom, Linear accordingly. Yeah.
Sorry, well, you always give me ideas, Dad. Just to add, I think there's two other things. Like obviously, like data is really important, right? Having access to your database, being able to query the right data is very useful. I think depending on if you're a big company, so for big company people, what your data science team should be setting up is some sort of like bot, like a Slack bot, that is connected to your data warehouse and some of the key tables that are like known to be reliable and sources of truth. So at Coinbase, and even at Wealthsimple, at Coinbase specifically, there's like a @Jarvis bot. So you could type @Jarvis, I would love to see the number of USDC holders in Brazil right now. And it will create the query, it'll showcase the query, and also show like a chart and everything for you. So it makes data pulling a lot faster. And one of the biggest problems with data scientists, or data science, is like often they have to like make sure they're pulling from the right sources, and like there's like some data hygiene. And what building that bot does is it forces them to make sure the hygiene is high, and make sure there's some reliable data sources. So like if you don't have that, you should have that at your company. It's super useful. And the very last thing is, I think support tickets are super useful. So if you have like an MCP server with like Zendesk or any of the other support things, you could just pull it into Claude Code and see patterns and things like that.
Can I add one more thing? Sorry, I'm taking it back. If there's any aspiring PMs in the room, internal tools to help your internal team like this is huge. Like if you want to navigate into product but are not there and trying to find a way, you are the subject matter expert in your department. So that learning and like, wow, why are we going from A to B to C to D, and it's taking all this time, like, do we need something like what Abid just mentioned, which is sometimes usually the case, like something to just help accelerate this? Lead that charge. Find a way to get a team or partner with someone if you don't have access to the code base, and you lead that. That's your internal buy-in right there to be like, well, if there's a PM opening, there's an opportunity, and you just unlocked like a PM win under your belt, whether you're a PM or not. So if you're aspiring, I highly encourage you to do that because you have the subject matter expertise. The way to build it is very generalized now.
Yeah, totally agree. I think as a career coach, whenever I coach people, it's like there's always the chicken and egg problem. And the way you break that is by creating your own experience and doing these internal entrepreneurs like projects to help you figure out a product to build. I guess I'll share like a quick workflow that I do as well. So right now, I recently learned that you can actually create prototypes on Mural. And so Mural, a lot of people know it as the whiteboarding tool, but you can actually give it context on your interviews, and then you can create sticky notes, and then you can ask Mural to cluster your sticky notes by keywords, and then by topics, and then you select the problem pain points that you want to dive deeper in, And then you can also ask Miro to help you write PRD template, and then you can use it to think of, like, ask it to brainstorm solutions for you, and then you can come up with the screens in terms of what each screen does, and then generate prototype from that. So in that way, you are able to actually collaborate with your whole product team and people beyond product in a whiteboard while still being able to generate prototypes. So I thought that was super cool if you guys wanted to try it out. And then I also use Claude a lot, and I schedule my daily email checks because I have too many newsletters and I don't want to read them. I kind of just ask Claude to summarize my newsletters for me, and that's scheduled in every day as well. So yeah, for all of you, think about the repeatable workflows that you do every day. Think about the work that you want AI to help you replace, and you can build your own workflows. So now we've talked about all the wonderful things that AI can do. How about let's talk about where AI fail? Where do you feel like AI is not useful, and where have you seen the mistakes and failures?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple blind spots today for me when it comes to using, where I can't fully rely on AI. I need to sort of augment it. One area is just, I mean, the one we talked about earlier, of course, your judgment, your taste, and so on. But I think to say something a bit more tactical, as a founder now, we have to deal with churn a lot. Churn is a complex problem to solve. And yes, you can leverage Claude, and it can access your database and your intercom chats and your Amplitude or whatever you use for customer behavior. It'll give you a lot. You can leverage AI to make that data grepping much faster. But at the end of the day, you still have to figure out what to do with that. I've actually tried using Claude to help solve my churn problem, and it doesn't work. You can use it, and you can actually get the context needed, but it's a messy area, and like it may not know, for example, well, okay, what about your competitors? Have they changed their pricing? What about the Shopify ecosystem? Is there just a lot of uninstalls happening lately? Is there a macro factor? Usually it's not macro, but it could happen. The point I'm getting at is, this is where the rest of your tool set comes in. So I think when it comes to these like really hairy, messy problems that you're like, oh crap, I still haven't figured it out. I mean, there's so many problems. Like Abid and I talk about it often. So much we have not figured out, and it's because it's not just like AI is a silver bullet, but it helps a lot. But you have to lean on your tool chest of judgment, experimentation, knowing when to hunt down a problem and try and solve it, and be like, I'm just going to accept it's not going to get solved right now and move on to the next thing. So just tactically, I would say churn is an example of that. Did I answer the question or something? Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I just want to double down on churn, and then I'll talk about another area. But I 100,000% agree with churn. I think the thing about, and we had this issue at Wealthsimple, just to make it more specific, where when we were first building the banking product, we built direct deposit, where you could have your paycheck land. We went to market with that in the early days. And to get people, first of all, to trust a startup with their paycheck is very challenging. So we had some adoption, but then we had a really high churn rate for some reason in the early days, and it was super unclear why. There was some survey that we sent out, but churn surveys don't really get to the root of the why. So the only real way we were able to find out was literally talking to customers, having literally 50 conversations. And then from there, after those conversations, we're okay, there's 4 potential sources. A, there's a bunch of contract or gig workers with irregular paychecks. So the way we're measuring churn seems they seem to be showing up as one source. The second is there's a bunch of general contractors, handymen who get paid in cash. They come on Wealthsimple, realize they can't deposit cash. That's a big source. And there's a bunch of these other findings we would not have found in the data or with AI. We had to be in the weeds, talk to customers to really find that. And today churn rate is, I think, super low, which is great. So the other thing beyond churn is sales. So yes, there's certain aspects of sales operations that can be automated, which is great, and lead gen. But I don't think anything is replacing highly relationship-based sales. I don't see an AI agent, you know, being good friends with like Bob and taking him out to, you know, to a Raptors game and selling in a big enterprise contract, right? So I think sales is so important. I wish I knew how important it was earlier in my career, but I don't think AI is coming from sales. So if you're in sales, that's dope. Stay in sales.
Yeah, no, sales skills is more important than ever. And since the more human skills they are, the more important because you can't be replaced. And given how cheap it is right now to build and execute, how do you prioritize? Like, there are so many things that you can build. How do you make sure that your team isn't just building more features because they can?
We didn't do a good job of this at Coinbase. I think we fell into the trap of like, more is better, so let's just ship more, but we needed to subtract more from the product. So we didn't do well. If I was to answer how we could do better, I think moving fast is great when there's clarity on the what. But if there's no clarity on the what or the why, then sometimes you should, like, in certain domains, slow down a little bit. So then the question is like, when do you go fast? When do you go slow? I think when you have clarity on the what, you should go really, really fast. And people question, like, what about quality? But I actually think speed sometimes creates quality. And I think the guys at Ramp said the same thing. But if you don't have clarity on, like, what's going to sell, what's going to move the needle, it's important to get alignment on, like, okay, so what are these hypotheses that we have that we should ship first? And once you are, like, aligned on those hypotheses, then go, right, and ship those fast. But, like, I think it's important to get clarity on those first. That's kind of how I'm thinking about it. Not a good answer, but I'll let Raheen answer.
Yeah, I was actually, as you were talking about how it was at Coinbase, I was thinking about Amazon days, and like, I'm talking as if I worked there years ago. I left like 16, 18 months ago, but it wasn't that long. But I know that it was the opposite. It was almost like, why are we building more? But the systems are in place so that, you know, going back to PRFAQ, BRD, weekly ops review, like, these systems are in place so you don't ship a mistake to millions of users either, right? So there's trade-offs. And I think with AI, it was faster. So I think from a prioritization framework, the effort column was like, okay, this is a lot faster to do. Like, it was basically like, you know, I think at the time it was like a 5x reduction on some things, but it was kind of proportional. So you're still having to prioritize accordingly. I think when it comes to the what and why is just critical, because if you don't if you're not sure how to sort of navigate there, then I think it can create bloat. I'll use an example from the current business today that I run, which is basically there was this feature that customers wanted. Okay, so just for context, we're a booking platform for Shopify. Okay, so the idea is you want to book at a showroom in Toronto. They probably use Calendly, but now they would prefer to use integrated Shopify booking app because all your data is saved. So if Max were to come to the showroom using Calendly, I don't know if Max, who Max is. I'm seeing him for the first time in Calendly. But if you have a Shopify integrated app, it's like, here's Max's purchase history. Now I can personalize my meeting with Max. I can do a follow-up. So that was a feature request that came up. We were like, okay, the more we sink our teeth into Shopify's ecosystem, the stickier it is for that brand and that business to support their customers like Max better. Our first iteration was like a tag that was super brittle and it broke a lot, and we got complaints about it, but we knew it was in the right direction, right? Because what they had before was nothing. It was like it was us or another competitor, which is fair. But what they had before was Calendly. So I think that's a good example where, like, we just pushed through. We have a better integration now. We got some updated APIs through Shopify, and now it's one of our most relied features because it personalizes the entire journey, and that led to personalized emails and personalized follow-up. So I think that's an example where, like, if you know the downside is not that bad, or like they don't have anything today, that's a good example. We can just iterate through. But I think when the stakes are higher, of course, then it just takes more care. Yeah.
You gave me an idea. So I think the Coinbase example was an example of where this was done wrong, largely because we weren't clear on who we were building for, right? So we were building for a bunch of different types of demographics, the crypto natives, right? Active traders, wanting to, make crypto adoption easy for just everyday person. And those are all like very different type of people. And I think that's why the app became a little bit of a Frankenstein, and we were like shipping a bunch of different things to different types of users, and then it becomes nothing to no one, right? So I think maybe, but if I look at the Wealthsimple example, like over the past few years, there's a very intentional decision to go up market and focus on a certain segment of millennials who are, have a certain profile. It was very specific, and we could just go, right? And from that perspective, like more is more because you're really focused on that one user's needs and serving it really, really well. So I think if I was to do it differently at Coinbase, I'd be like really get clear on the who and make sure you're prioritizing the right who.
I'm actually curious, how did you get out of that Coinbase mess? Sorry, I'm not saying Coinbase was a mess. I'm saying that specific, sorry. Coinbase is great. That specific problem, I'm sure I've been in it before, but I'm sure some have been in it or have navigated it. How did you get out of it then?
Yeah, so you have to force leadership to make a decision, right? So I think often, and I think this is, again, a lot of big companies hit this issue where sometimes leadership is too far removed from what is being built, and that's why you have to reduce layers to get closer. And I think there was a conflation that building this for this customer would work for this customer, it'd be good for this customer, right? It would just, DeFi Lend would work well for people who don't know crypto, but they don't know what DeFi is, right? So, I think when you're in that situation, you have to force the conversation with leadership and present the trade-offs, right? So if, it's like an if-then statement, if we focus on this demographic, that means we should not do this, but do this. If we do this, that means, and you have to show the upside, the potential upside and downside of each decision. So if you work at a big company, that's how you do it. If you work at a startup, super easy to just force that decision, just walk up to your CEO and talk about it. And then if you're a founder, you just have to have, conversation with yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Every decision is a trade-off. And sometimes leaders just want all of it. So you have to present them with the opportunity cost for every decision that they're making to make sure that you're prioritizing the right one with the highest impact. Yeah. And given that it is we all know that AI has unpredictable outcome. And given this non-deterministic model, how does that change the way you scope and test your product?
So if you're an AI PM, and I'm sure Iris can talk a little bit more about her experience at Zynga there, but there's a number of methodologies that you need to take into consideration. So if it's a non-deterministic model, it's LLM-driven product, there's a variance of what is acceptable and what isn't, right? So you have to determine what that range of acceptability is. And what is good enough almost. And to do that, you have to have a golden data set of here's what some ideal responses look like. It has to be a large enough data set. You have to set up the right eval process, and I'm sure you can talk more about evals. I think determining that variance of what is acceptable is dependent on the risk profile of what you're building, right? So if you're in fintech and you're moving money, it's very little risk appetite. Or if you're in healthcare, very little risk appetite. But if you're, granola and you're summarizing notes, right? I mean, the notes could be important, but the margin for error or something that's not that helpful is a little bit forgivable. So I think that sets sort of your boundary conditions. Then the second piece that's important when you're building an AI product is like it has to have inbuilt feedback loops, right? So the very common example is like you ask ChatGPT a question and it gives you like thumbs up, thumbs down opportunity to see if the output is good. You should be building that somehow in your product. It could be that, it could be something else, but there should be some inbuilt feedback loop to make the product better and better. So that's number two. And then number three is there has to be some acceptable level of risk, right? Because you just don't know. You don't know all of the possible outcomes or all the possible inputs, right? So like you have to like determine what that risk percentage is that you're willing to take on. At least that's what I found in building what we're building and what I saw at Coinbase. So yeah, those are the three things that
Yeah, I mean, parallel on the fintech side, like when I was at AWS, it was AWS Payments. So not a lot I could do it, a non-deterministic approach, because if we don't charge cards, I'm fired for sure. So no, but honestly, the level of appetite for risk was lower, right? So I couldn't really do much there. But when it comes to how to navigate the non-deterministic, I have a slightly different thought process, but similar outcomes, I think. So the way I think of a non-deterministic would be like you have a result that's not really a yes, no, and there's almost like a confidence interval, right? It's like a confidence number, maybe 50% confident. And so I'll use an example with the booking app today. So a lot of power users they use it daily. Like that's how they're running their showrooms or their wine tastings and so on. So we got a request for them to be like, hey, there's a lot of bookings, which is great, but like I just need to know like what's my snapshot for the day. That led to us creating AI booking summaries. And so with AI booking summaries, it's contextual, it responds to their events. Hey, you've had an increase in bookings in this area, you're getting a lot of repeat customers and so on. It could be wrong, but we have the data and we felt we could get out there with something. And this could lead to a potential future where there's like a conversational interface. But for now, we just started with AI booking summaries. 4 bullets, limit the data to these tables, and similar to what Abid just said, thumbs up and thumbs down. And that's your signal. And it has to be part of the feedback loop because that signal helps you determine, are you on the right path? And don't ignore those either. Those thumbs down should be like a cycle where it's like, okay, could I get more information about this? Follow up with them, because those experiments can go stale, and then you're like, I don't know where to go. So that 50%, I think, can get to like 70, 85. Now it's 95%, and now it's a different ballgame you can operate with. So similar approaches, but that's the mental model I sort of draw to go from non-deterministic to kind of turn it into a deterministic problem by like gating it and experimenting and so on.
Just one really quick thing, and I'm sure Iris can talk about it, but when you're like an AI PM and you're building non-deterministic products, it is like your job is evals. Like evals is the most important part of your job. You need to make sure they make sense. There's a large enough data set of like golden or good answers, and you are like testing rigorously. I hear like the eval process is like can be very arduous and tedious, but that's what makes for a good outcome. So yeah.
No, for sure. Eval is very important, and like we have LLM as a judge, like a lot of people are tinkering with that as well, like trying to use AI to QA its own work, but then that also has its own problems. So yeah, I mean for Zynga, we use a combination of I guess rule-based logic versus ML versus LLM. So an AI agent. So each of them serve its own role. You kind of have to decide like which use case makes more sense. Like for example, our churn prediction models are machine learning models. That makes sense because we are using like the traditional ML models that gives prediction based on statistical significance. Whereas like we use AI agents to help automate Jira workflow. That makes sense because we use it to replace a more mundane task that AI agent can have more autonomy over. So you kind of have to decide like the use case you use each of it on, and then it's always a combination. Like the basic foundational rules are still like rule-based logic. So, yeah.
I'd love to chat about your churn prediction model one day. It would really help.
For sure, we'd love to tell you more and solve your churn problem, hopefully. And since now both of you were ex-PMs and now have become founders, how do you feel like the risk of like speed versus safety equation has changed now that you're in the startup world?
Yeah. So I think, yeah, like if I had to go back to the PM roles I had before, there's like as I mentioned at Amazon, right? You got the systems in place to manage that speed versus safety. It's like before you ship it out the door, it's got to go through these reviews because there's such a wide range of customers that you're supporting. I think for the way we navigate it now is, well, one, I'm closer to the customers. I know where they're sort of where it can go really wrong, and where it could be a net positive. Like that booking tag example where it's integrated more with Shopify. I think that's a good example where it's like that's a net positive. We're going speed all the way. When it comes to booking data manipulation, so let's use an example of like we thought about, we haven't built something like this, but someone had asked to be like, oh, could I just ingest your schedule availability and then integrate it with my team staff management and then update hours and stuff like that. And we never got there, but that's an example where I'd be way more cautious to be like, well, that's like, we make sure in the same way your Shopify store manages your inventory, your time is your inventory. If we expose that without thinking through it too much, they're going to be like, where's all my bookings? I was supposed to be fully available today. Or why am I fully blocked? That's probably our biggest support load is like, why aren't my times appearing? This is my bread and butter. So I think it's about like, you got to manage that speed with what the trade-off is. And sometimes could be a huge opportunity as well. That's also maybe PRD, PRFAQ land, where it's like, okay, it's a little more trivial, but maybe there's an opportunity to integrate with the Resdys and the Airbnbs of the world to manage experiences, and that's a bigger lift. But where there's not a lot of downside, but really good upside, I think it's okay to navigate and just move forward fast on speed.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add. I think that was a good answer. Good job.
Awesome. The founders are aligned. Okay. So I mean, we're at Iris Lens. We talk a lot about upskilling. So I wanted to hear about how both of you stay up to date with AI news. Do you listen to any podcasts, books? Maybe all of you now can listen to Iris Lens now. Follow us on Spotify. But yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Follow Iris Lens. That's huge. Yeah. So the ways that it's so hard to stay on top of it. So like if you're struggling, like I'm sure a lot of people are struggling. But the way that I stay on top of it is number one, working at a company that's like really AI pilled is super helpful because it just forces you to stay up to date. But if not, then the other way is there's a ton of awesome podcasts. I think like this is a cliche one, but it's just a really good one. Like Lenny's podcast is just like so good. Always have great, interesting guests from great companies or entrepreneurs. So definitely watch that. There's another podcast called How I AI. It's by Claire Vaux, who was the former CPTO of LaunchDarkly, which is like an experiment platform. So it's literally How AI literally brings people, either designers, engineers, or PMs on their podcast, and they literally spend. It's not a podcast you could walk and listen to. You have to like watch the video. They'll like show you different workflows. It's pretty cool what they do. It's a little bit more of a time commitment. And then no matter what you think about Twitter, there's like a lot of alpha on Twitter, right? So if you follow certain people in the AI space, the Anthropic, or like just very AI-pilled companies, you could see some of the workflows that they experiment with. They sometimes just post it online, and then you can like filter out like politics or news or whatever, and just follow that. So yeah, I think I think I actually find Twitter very valuable for that reason. And then the two podcasts that I mentioned. And then the last thing is just build stuff, right? There's nothing that will replace you trying to build stuff. Even like replicating things is totally fine because you'll go through sort of the end-to-end process. Yeah, that's it.
I think you look at more stuff than I do for sure. I was thinking about like, what do I actually, so Twitter's definitely one of them. I don't know, I just find that sometimes there's a lot of noise out there too. It's good, you found things that you filter through and sort of resonate, but I was thinking more about it as you were answering. I feel lucky, like I learned about SuperMe from you like the other day, and that's a super cool tool. So I honestly just talk to people in your network, not just talk. I have the courage to be like, hey, can I sit with you for like 5 minutes? Can you just show me how this works? Like I was meeting a friend of mine today, and I didn't know that I could actually use Claude on my phone the exact same way I do it on my desktop. Like I didn't know about it, and I thought I was using it in this weird way of like remote control. I was like, no, dude, you could just do ABC, and he showed me, and I was like, oh wow, okay, now I can actually use this. So I think it's okay to be vulnerable. Just go talk to people, but also be like, could you show me quickly? Like, I'm trying to navigate this too. That's how I typically do it. I know that's not like very, very vast, but I think that helps you get comfortable because a lot of it is uncomfortable. Like so many tools, what do I use? Sometimes you just want to hear from someone who's used it, tried it, and that gives you a little bit of a boost. And you're like, okay, I'll go try that.
Yeah, for sure. I think listening to friends and then talking to people who use tools is very helpful. Like a tool that I recently learned is called Whisperflow. It's really useful, basically, because we ramble a lot and then we talk to, like your talking speed is a lot faster than your typing speed. So instead of typing to your LLMs, you talk to it using Whisperflow, and then it's able to help structure your unstructured rambling thoughts into a structured way of asking a question and then make your output better from the LLM because now you give it a better input using Whisperflow. So recommend you guys checking that out. Last question before I open up to the audience, so get your questions ready. And any bold prediction for 2028, hot takes for what is going to happen in the next 3 years?
You take this first.
Or any advice for the audience as well.
All right, fine. I think we talked about it. There was a couple of them. I mean, Abid kind of referenced it with like GTM, go-to-market teams and so on. I think the best PMs can sell. I don't think that's going away. If you're internal, you're selling to your manager, your team, legal partners, whoever, you're selling to customers. Those skills are going to help you in your PM role and wherever life takes you next, right? That sort of connection. I know we talked about that one, so I'm thinking of a different one, which, so a lot of times, especially for those in PM careers right now and your role's kind of changing, it's not easy. And I think you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable. And it's like actually putting in the work to be like, okay, I'm just gonna 30 minutes do this and I've never touched code or I've never touched design or whatever that is that you feel vulnerable about, and just do it and just time it and do it for a week. I guarantee you're gonna learn something, even if it's like, that sucked, but that's okay, because that's the world we live in now. There's a new AI tool every single day. You don't have to become a master in these AI tools. You have to become a master at being fluid and being like, okay, if one day GPT sucks and you want to use Claude, use it. If Claude sucks one day and there's something else, it's the fluidity that's gonna change a lot, but the level of openness you are to being uncomfortable is going to help you stay ahead and help you stay nimble with it, because that's I think what's going to take us to wherever you want to be now and wherever you want to be next. So I think those are my main two.
Okay. So two things as well. So the first thing is, I think like credentials are not going to matter at all. or will matter significantly less, like your resume, where you worked, like credentials. Right now, they're like a very helpful like signal to employers, right? Where you went to school, all that stuff. I think like your GitHub profile, your portfolio, that will matter a lot more because it'll showcase a lot. And I think that's going to be true not just in tech, but broadly, right? So I think, you see somebody with a fancy resume, and I think you should just like ingest the fact that you are probably just as smart as them. You could do, whatever you need with them, even if you're not as technical. I think that's true. So don't worry about your resume. Worry about your portfolio. And then I think the second thing is I think there's just going to be a lot more like boutique companies, like boutique software. And this is not like people have heard this probably before, but like a lot more smaller, specialized software for the people you really want to build for. They're not going to be like $1 billion company. It might be a few million, but that's okay because you're building for the people you want to, and you're making some money off of it. So I think there's going to be more of that, which I think will be awesome. Like think about like Shopify stores back when there was an explosion of like people, producing their own clothes. There's going to be that, but for software, I think. And then I think this is the third one. The very last thing is I think where the alpha will go is going to be like physical products, physical AI. And that's like really exciting because like the software stack is there to like power physical AI. So I think that was a great time for you to like maybe, if you're curious, take a leap into the physical world, because software is software, but it's basically doing the same thing, just a little bit quicker. But where the real impacts to our lives will happen is in the physical world. So I'm really excited about that in 2020. And I think hopefully Toronto will be filled with like self-driving buses in 2028. Let's see. I said buses, not cars.
I disagree with one thing. It's not a total disagreement. It goes back to credentials. So I do agree that what you build and what you showcase in your portfolio is key. I think depending on where you're navigating your career and where you are, sometimes you want to sell to someone who is like a CEO or a founder or whoever, and sometimes I won't lie, sometimes the AWS stamp is helpful. It's like, oh, okay, this is a booking app that was built by someone at AWS. I'm not going to lie, that actually helps. It does. But that also means that essentially what I'm saying is you have to create a story. You have to create a story that you think is unique to you, stay true to you, whether that means the companies you worked at, the schools you've been at, the stuff you've worked on. Like, you can create a story fully with your portfolio, and that matters a lot. And you can create a story with these other areas too. So I think it's really about like the uniqueness of what you bring to the table, or like even like, hey, I feel like I could be a PM, never had the hat, but I've done all these wins. Like that makes you a PM too if you can just craft it, right? So that's my only take to slight disagreement, is that I think you can still leverage and use it.
Yeah, totally. I feel like the uniqueness of who you are, your background, your experience kind of will bring you that unique perspective when you go into PM as well, and then give you that strength. So just gotta craft that story. And I feel like for me, I actually think that the ability to learn is more important than ever, because now you can get access to knowledge so easily, but how do you learn quickly? How do you get yourself adapted to a new industry, new domain? And learning based on first principle, I think that is going to be a very important skill for everyone. And then critical thinking is more important than ever. Like, how do you assess AI output? How do you make sure that it is actually good quality, and then putting the actual thinking hat on? So I think those are all very good points. Yeah. Thank you for the amazing insight. Your insights are very insightful, I have to say. So any audience questions? You can come up here.
What do you think we need to document once a feature has been shipped, and what don't we need to document anymore? And especially in situations when if you build the features without a PRD, what needs to be documented? Because from my career, I remember that sometimes even a poorly written Jira ticket can be useful 2 years later to understand the why.
In terms of, and it's, if I understand the question, it's more about post-feature, that documentation, is it needed, it's not. I think it comes back to if it's for, who is it for, and how widely used is it, right? So if it's for someone like your internal team, I still think there's a value in documenting what it is. Back to the same thing of like, you get asked, hey, where's that feature? Tell me more about it, and so on. So I think documentation is super, super valuable, and for the public, because I think if it's a public-facing, that's a help article or a launch article, and so on. So I do think there's value in documenting. How that document changes in the future is very valid. Like, we're starting to write help articles that are friendly for LLMs, so that when someone's on GPT, like, can a Shopify booking app do this? They're pulling our help article to find out. So I think documentation is critical, but the medium can change. So I think it's really important to note and make sure it's visible, because it could be like a person looking at it, or it could be an LLM crawling it. So I still think it's valid. It just depends on internal, maybe just one document. External could be a help article, launch article, and document. I still think it's valid.
Yeah, I also think it's just important to capture the learning, right? Because like if you're in like a big, massive org, like that learning can just be lost, right? So the point of shipping is to get the result, but if you don't get the result, you need to learn something. So I think capturing that learning in like a super brief doc is useful. And then making sure an LLM can ingest that doc so like it can pull on that context for future initiatives. Yeah, I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, I guess I'll add on there because I was speaking at CUTC 2 days ago. It's a tech conference, and I met the CEO of Convictional there, Roger. So they're building an interesting communication app where they allow you having like an internal Reddit forum where you can track all the decisions that your team has made and why it's made this way, either in calls or in like, I guess, notes, Slack, and then they document the decisions and give people context about what, like all the things that has been discussed in the past. So I feel like documentation is going to be important, especially in the case of having historical context and knowing why historical decisions are made a certain way. So I thought what they're building is pretty cool. You can check them out.
Hey everyone, I'm Max. I'm the furniture example. I wanted to ask you both. You both were PMs, and many of the people in this room are PMs. You both made the decision to go founder mode. Curious about what was behind that for both of you personally, professionally, and why now, and what people who are in this room might consider if that's the right move for them.
Yeah, I'll start. I think, first of all, it's just a really exciting time to just build stuff. So it feels like there's always these like different technology inflection points. There's like the mobile era and early internet.com era. It feels like the narrative could be that this is like another era. So that was one driver. The second driver was there's like a problem that I spotted with my co-founder that we built internally at Coinbase. It was used at Coinbase and it solved that problem. So we got like early validation and ended up, it was a side project, ended up securing a couple of additional customers. So I got like enough validation that we were like, what the hell? Like, this was too much traction for it to be a side project, and you can't be 1 foot in, 1 foot out at a certain point. So it kind of, pushed us to take the leap. So that was part of it. I think the last thing is like, being a founder is really hard. Like I feel like an imposter I feel like a fake every day. And it's also very time consuming and taxing. So it's helpful to be in like the right state of your phase of your life to do it, because it's taxing on you and your family. I don't have a kid yet, right? But planning for that. So this felt like the right window to take the leap. And yeah, I think I would regret, if I died tomorrow, I would regret not trying. And that's kind of ultimately what it came down to.
Yeah, I felt that with my like earlier PM journey, like I feel very, very fortunate. Like a lot of it was just like serendipity and a bit of luck, a lot of luck. I felt that early on, I had these like early stage startup PM roles, which by the way, highly recommend. I think Abid too. Like just in terms of the vast sheer of like different things you can latch onto. Amazon was a different beast, was a different ball game, and it was an adjustment for me. I think after 3 years, it was like, okay, I actually didn't know, like I know a lot of people like, okay, product management, maybe you go director of product and so on. I didn't think I wanted to do that personally. And maybe in the age of AI now, like the middle management stuff, right? So I think it was just more an appetite to build and solve a problem. My co-founder is actually a friend of mine. We went to school together, so that also helps. So I feel super lucky, to be honest. And the Shopify like ecosystem in space, just so much luck. Like feel very, very grateful. But we experimented a lot. And I think that's where it just kept the motion going. It wasn't like, okay, we built something, let's chill. It was like experimenting way faster than our full-time jobs, like way, way, way faster. And just tried to pick up momentum and focus on things that we felt we had some battle scars with, like, hey, if the onboarding isn't right, we're gonna die. If they don't get to their first aha moment very quickly, like they're gonna go. There's other competitors, right? So I think we just got more comfortable. We hit a lot of like ups and downs for sure, and then as you see customers happy and you see them relying on it, and hopefully it's earning revenue soon. Like I think those are just signals that kind of keep you going. And I think what got me like founder pilled at that point was just like, it felt magical almost. It's like, oh wow, like I was able to take the PM skills, like, judgment and so on, and being able to ship features, communicate with development. I actually code now a little bit too. And it just feels very like magical to do that in this world of AI. And so I felt that was like, but it really helped. The PM background really helped because, it's like you touch so many layers of your business, and now you're at the nexus of so much that you can bring that to a founder role. Yeah.
I just want to emphasize, just related to what you were saying about just small companies, like unrelated to the founder path, but it definitely informed taking the founder path. I think the best product builders have worked at startups, right? And like die or survive startups, right? Like because you kind of you sharpen your teeth a little bit, you get thrown into the fire. I think I think you are a worse PM if you only work at Google. And I know this because I worked with great PMs from Google who could never survive in a startup, right? So I personally think if you're looking to break into PM and you can't break into the big companies, that's actually a blessing in disguise. Try to break into a great startup or scale up. I learned way more at Ritual and Wealthsimple than I did. Coinbase was amazing, but then I did at Coinbase, right? So yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I was throwing a perspective there as well because I was the founding PM of a YC startup. And I learned so much because I get to work with CEOs day by day. And then I felt like I was in touch with like all areas like growth, go-to-market, and monetization, pricing plan, and things way beyond just the features and solutions you're building. And that allow you to think more holistically about like system level thinking, be more structured. So I think I learned a lot at the YC startup. I learned a lot at Scale AI as well. And then that was a Series E startup. It was already a different beast, but still it was, I think both of the startups and as well as Arteria, like a Series B startup, they're all like way faster than Zynga. No shade on Zynga, they're great, but like, I just felt like I learned a lot more and I moved a lot faster at those startups. So highly recommend working at startups and big tech, like both kind of helps you build up your branding, but you should definitely try out working at startups. I guess I'll give a bit perspective on the founder piece for founding a community as well. Since I founded Iris Lens only a month ago, and the reason I founded it is because I was passionate about building community and I wanted to scale content at the same time. And I felt like having community, like conversations like this and being able to record them was the way for me to scale both community and content at the same time, having like live podcasts and all of you listening. So I would say founder takes shape in different shape or form. Like you don't have to be a startup founder. You can found a community. You can found different things. So if there's a problem that you're passionate about, if there's a cause that you want to get people behind, you can go do it too. You want to come up here?
Hi, I'm Sunir. I'm at Huck AI. I've been a computer scientist by training and birth, I would say, and I ended up in marketing through a series of unfortunate life decisions, being born in '79 and graduating through a dot-com bus. And now I'm being a product manager, but one of the things you said because I've also been a founder, but one of the things you said is that being a product manager, you have to also think about go-to-market, sales, engineering. One thing that's happening with AI is there's a lot of role collapse. Just people can spread out into other roles, which is causing some anxiety. But I just think it's kind of fun because also the other problem is people have gone so far away from customers. That gives people a chance to iterate and expand beyond being just a PRD monster, which I've met a lot of PRD monsters. I'm like, your PRD is not your job. The customer is your job, and the customer's in the market. So I'd love to hear more about how you take your job out of the product zone, especially your founders, I know, but also with your team, out of their little box, expand them so they can feel more of what the customer and the market is feeling, so they can make better, more fun, more vibrant products.
Yeah, I could answer. So this is at Insightful. We talk to customers like many conversations every week. But I'll give like a Wealth Simple example because I think that was like it was a more militant example because it is mandated for all. There's no user research team. Or like there's one user research enablement person, but there's no user research team at Wealth Simple. There's one person that enables it. And it's on engineers, designers, PMs, marketers, everybody to talk to clients at Wealth Simple. And if you don't, that works against you in performance reviews and sometimes gets you fired, right? So they are militant about that. And sometimes it can feel like you're just learning the same thing over and over again. But usually there's like a new nugget of wisdom that you're missing, or there's something that needs to be reinforced that you've heard a ton of times, but you never really thought of it in that way. So I know that's an extreme example, but I actually think that's the right way to be building a product. Like it should be a regular part of your cadence. And if there's a week that goes by where you're not talking to a certain number of customers, I really think you're doing something wrong. And if your company operates in a way where there's a lot of friction between you and your customer, I frankly believe that's wrong. And I know a lot of companies operate that way, right? For compliance reasons, legal reasons, but generally speaking, there should be no, I think, layer between you and your customer. And if you're running a company, you should mandate it as part of your performance. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, I mean, of course, as you chat with more customers, some people think that like you chat with more customers, like, oh, I don't have time. It takes away from my, so many things. It's true. As a PM, you have so many hats, and talking to customers is one of those things where like you may get just repetitive insights in the conversations, but I think the signal you get out of it is worth doing because, and it takes investment. It takes time, like 30 minutes, hours of your day. It depends, but I think the getting your whole team to do it is hard for sure. There's like champions, like, hey, this is what I found and learned from this customer, and this is how it translated into this idea. Usually that was a bit of a spark when like, it is interesting. Like I would say at AWS, every team was a little bit different, but we had these like little like peaks and valleys where like, oh, okay, this quarter we're doing a lot of customer discovery, and then like it's Q3 and everyone's like drowning and no one's doing anything. And then it was actually a colleague of mine that was like, yeah, I just chatted with these 5 accounts and didn't even realize that, paying for your bill in this one way was actually pretty dumb and we should actually make a change. And that kind of gave a lot of confidence to other PMs to be like, oh, we should get back on the horse here. Like, we should just do it. Yes, we have to do our PRDs and so on, but if you become a PRD monster, that's a really good term, you end up losing that like signal. So sometimes it just takes a champion. your first point on like role collapse, that's actually interesting. And you're right. Like as founders, we do that role collapse now. Like it's put the product hat on, sales, support, you name it, right? I actually think that's kind of advantageous to those who are PMs now. If you're a PM now or aspiring PM, like you're doing the role of multiple hats. So lean into it. Try to lean into it. If you're closer to the customer, even better. And take that initiative. And I know it's tough because that also means more work. But if you can try and lean more into where the customers are, I think you can really add a lot more value to the teams you're working on today. So, and it's easier for us to say. I know we're founders. We're not in the trenches anymore from like the anxiety of the role collapse. But try to lean into it where you see benefit to help move the sales function or the customer insight function as much as you can, and come about it from a point where like you feel comfortable working and wearing different hats. Try to wear that hat wherever possible, even if it means an extra. Okay, I'd love to shadow the 30-minute call, or I'd love to hop into your sales meeting. I'm just gonna be a fly, like a fly on the wall. I think it would add a lot. Yeah.
And just to play the other side, because I think Raheem's right. Like it's very easy for us to say, oh, you should talk to your customers. It sounds so obvious, but like when you're actually in it, it can be hard. And I think if your company culture doesn't value it, and it's not going to get you promoted, and like there's no optics around it being a good thing, right? Because optics in a big company matters, unfortunately, if you're getting promoted. Then like your incentive to do it is probably like zilch, right? So a lot of it is going to be like based on your company culture and what is rewarded, right? And there's only so much you can control when it comes to what is rewarded and what isn't, right? So in that context, maybe there's very little value. Maybe like your roadmap is set. Maybe you're just like an execution monkey and you're just helping to execute. And maybe that's what you have to do to get promoted, right? And if that's the case, that is the case, right? So I'm acting like it's easy, but it's not. But like I genuinely think that for companies that do operate that way, they will not win. And especially in this environment, they're going to lose faster than companies that do it. So if your company does not do it, then you have to like maybe differentiate yourself by making the case for why it's valuable, right?
Or you can find a new job. Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have for questions. Thank you all for being engaged and a wonderful audience, so attentive. So we will have our rooftop happy hour, and then feel free to grab more food, and let's give a round of applause. Thank you.
I'm going to steal this mic super quickly. Can we just give another huge round of applause? Thank you so much to Abid, Raheem, and Iris for such an incredibly transparent and tactical conversation. Yes, that is the end of our formal portion, but again, we still have so much time. We have another hour and a half or so upstairs for networking, so please do continue to bug them, ask them questions, meet each other. You all have such interesting backgrounds, and you can just tell from the conversations already and the questions that we are asking, like I can see some really cool networking happening. So be sure to hang out. A couple of logistical items. So the rooftop is accessible by stairs only. Everyone, again, your favorite people in the green lanyards, everyone in the green lanyards will guide you upstairs. The bartender, all the food, all the drinks, the setup is staying down here. So please grab a plate, grab a glass, grab a drink on your way up, take it up, hang out. And then in terms of leaving at 8:30 p.m., we'll be asking you all to head back down the stairs to this floor, and then you'll take the elevator back down. If you do need to leave early, no stress at all. Same thing though. Just come back down to this floor, take the elevator down to G, and you'll be outside. One flag. Just remember that because this is an access controlled building and elevator, once you do leave, you won't be able to come back up. So just keep that in mind. But thank you all so much again for coming out. It's been great, and we're excited to continue chatting. Let's all grab a drink. Enjoy the rest of your Toronto Tech Week. Enjoy the conversations upstairs. And yeah. Let's all head upstairs. Thanks so much.
Quick shout, thanks to the Sago Mini team, and I know everyone in the green lanyards, they killed it, so thank you.
Shout out to Lisa as well for being such an amazing host. Thank you. Okay, now you're all free to leave.
None of you showed.
I know, like, oh,
We're all showing the arm and the face.
I was so awkward. I was like going to my chest. Okay. No, I thought you did a goal thing.
It was great. Everyone was showing some. Hi, sorry, yeah, great call.